Welcome to chapter 16 of the book of Mark, the last chapter. Like I mentioned in chapter 15 at the end, if the story ended in chapter 15 with the crucifixion of Jesus, then our efforts in going through all this would be pretty much in vain. But it didn't. There's chapter 16, and we'll continue after Jesus expired, breathed out his last, and was taken down off of the cross, and then he was buried by Nicodemus, Joseph of Arimathea, a rich man who had the tomb. He put Jesus into this tomb, wrapped him up, rolled this large stone across the mouth of the tomb, whether it was straight down in the ground or it was dug into a rock that was sideways. It doesn't really explain that, and so we're not exactly sure. I think in Jerusalem there's a couple of places that claim to be this cave that Jesus was buried in. It begins in 1, and the elapsing of the Sabbath, Salvatu is a direct transliteration, Mary, the Magdalene, I could have put the there because it has the article. I could write here, Mary, the one of James, or the mother of James. The Magdalene and Mary, the one of James, and Salome brought aromatics, that having come, they should anoint him. This Mary of James and Salome is only mentioned at the crucifixion. She's also mentioned in Matthew and Luke. Verse 2, and exceedingly in the morning of day 1 of Sabbaths, they come unto the Menemion. Mention is something that's a tomb, something that you remember people, memorial type thing. At the rising of the Eliu, the sun, helium derivative. And they said among themselves, well, who shall roll away the stone for us, Lethon, from out of the door of the Menemiu, of the tomb? And having looked up, they viewed that the stone was rolled away, for it was exceedingly great, megas. So this roll was rolled away. It sounds like it probably his tomb was in the side of a hill. Possibly not, because if it was laid flat over something that went straight down, and they'd have to pick it up and then roll it away. It was large. And having entered into the tomb, entering into the tomb, it sounds like they wouldn't climb down inside of this hole, so probably on the side of a hill. They saw Neaniskon, Nea is new, sitting down on the dexias, the right, dexterous, being right-handed. He's being clothed in white apparel. Levkin we have leukemia, and a stole for apparel. So here's this man. I think it mentions in other places when you see these angels, sometimes they even sparkle, radiate some type of a light. And they were astonished. And he says to them, the angel, do not be astonished. You seek Jesus the Nazarene, the one having been crucified? He was arisen. He's not here. See the place where they put him? And they're looking around, and he's gone. And other Gospels mentions how Peter came and then John, and they saw the wrappings in one place, but then the facial cover was in another place, which kind of shows that the Shroud of Turin was a fake, because it has the face covering on the shroud. The topography, derivative. But go, say to his disciples and to Peter that he goes before you unto Galilee, which was way up north. He made sure that he said this to Peter, because Peter was the one that denied him the 3 times and was pointed out. The other ones ran also, but to Peter was pointed out that this is what he would do, and God, in the form of Jesus, knew everything that was going to happen. So he knew what Peter was going to do, and Peter was despondent, but he made sure that he would point the name out, and to Peter. There you shall see him, as he said to you. And having come forth quickly, they fled from the tomb. They ran running, seeing this man. And trembling in a change of state took hold of them. So they were really, I don't know if it was frightened or they were upset. And they told no one, not one thing, for they were afraid. Ephovunto, the phobia, it has to do with the fear. They were afraid, so they didn't tell anybody. Then it changes and it goes into a little dialogue here till the end of the chapter. And having risen in the morning on the first day of the Sabbath, as Jesus, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, from whom he had cast out 7 demons. So in this period of time, he appeared then to Mary Magdalene. And that one, it mentions in the other gospel about her coming to the garden and thinking that he was the gardener. She had 7 demons, the ammonia, and he had cast them out. And she loved Jesus, followed him, because he cleansed her and made her whole, different than what she was before. There's many people that do have Jesus experience the love of Jesus, the touch of Jesus. Afterwards, they're not the same. It's what happened to me. Before I had the touch from Jesus, I grew up knowing who Jesus was, but when I was older and walked away for 13 years and I came back, then I knew that I had a different relationship completely in my thoughts towards who Jesus was. And like it mentions in the one place where the woman was wiping his feet with her tears, and Jesus says that one that sins much loves much, has her sins forgiven, loves much. Continues in verse 10. That one, Mary Magdalene, having gone, reported to the ones having been with him, who were mourning and weeping, probably in the upper room there in Jerusalem. Pingile, there's the alpha and the double gamma, report. Message is different derivatives for these angelos, a message with the different prepositions in front, apo and being this one. Those people were mourning and weeping over Jesus because they followed him, and here he's been crucified, horribly died, and didn't do anything, just died and expired, and they put him in a grave. He's been there now 3 days and nothing, and so everything that they had was gone as far as they saw it. Sort of like the Soviet Union, the collapse of the Soviet Union in my lifetime. All the people that had all their hopes in this social revolution, that everybody was going to work together and do things together and it's going to be wonderful, but yet found that the many people at the higher up were living off of the work of the ones that were doing the work, and the other ones weren't doing any work. Finally, it just collapsed under its own weight. The United States didn't have to do anything. These people afterwards didn't know what to do. Their whole life was the revolution and success of the revolution and everything they were doing. They sent a man into outer space, the first one, rockets, all these marvelous things the Soviet Union did. And all of a sudden, it's been kicked out from underneath them. So these people here are probably the same way. It's all been kicked out from under them. What do they have left? And those, having heard that he lives and was seen by her, they disbelieved. Acousantes, acoustics. They didn't believe her. And after these things, with 2 from out of them walking, he was made manifest in another appearance, and they're going into the field, maybe the road to Emmaus, when this 2 men ran across Jesus, and then he appeared to them and ate with them, and then disappeared, told them all the things about how the Messiah was to suffer and be crucified and raise up from the Old Testament. And peripatousin, a walking, peripatetic, and he appeared in another appearance. Hetero is another, and morphia could be a morph, another appearance or a morph. something. He looked different. Just as the men was talked about with the men, the road to Emmaus, which I believe is in John. And those having gone forth reported to the rest. They came back, and those neither believed. So they came back, and we saw Jesus. Oh, talked to him, ate with him. And they, no, we don't believe you. And afterwards, with them reclining, that's probably in the upper room, he was made manifest to them, to the 11. Of course, the 11, because it was Judas was hung himself, so there's only 11. And he made manifest to them upper room, and he berated their unbelief and hardness of heart. Later, Thomas, doubting Thomas, said he wouldn't believe it unless he saw the nail prints in his hands and his feet, and the hole in the side by the sword. So he berated their unbelief and sclerocardion, arteriosclerosis, a hardening of the arteries, and the cardia of the heart, a hardness of heart. God help us that we don't have a hardness of heart. We go through tough times and don't think that God is with us, and all these horrible things are happening, like with Jesus and these people, and unbelief starts setting in, and we look at other things to help us out of the predicaments that we are in, the government to help us out, or social welfare, the churches, and all types of things to help us out, rather than having the belief. And it's different if it's not easy when you're going through these difficult things, because these people they saw Jesus, walked with them. So if they had unbelief, of course they hadn't seen him rise yet, but they did have an unbelief, a hardness of heart, that to the ones seeing him being arisen, they did not believe. Even though he said he was going to arise, the Jews knew what he said. They put a custodial guard in front of the tomb because they said that deceiver said he'll rise in 3 days. But no, not these. And he said to them, having gone into the cosmon, the world, altogether proclaim the evangelion, the good news, evangelize, the good message, to all creation, in the creation. So they went out, and the creation is expanded to the people. I mean, the 1400s when the New World was found, and went into Asia and all these places. It took 1,000 years and more. And he continues, and he says, the one believing and being immersed shall be delivered. Now, be immersed, is it the water immersion here he's talking about, or is it immersion of the Holy Spirit? It doesn't really say, but it's an interesting thought, I think. Baptistes, baptize is a derivative. They shall be delivered, shall be in the future. But the one disbelieving shall be condemned. So these people that disbelieve there, were they condemned? I don't think he's talking about them in particular. But after that, if you hear and you don't believe, then the condemnation is what you have, because you can't be delivered because you don't have the belief. And that's what it takes to be delivered, the believing and trusting in Jesus. Semia. Semaphore, it's a derivative. Signs to these believing shall follow closely. In my name they shall cast out daemonia, demons. And I've seen people with demons, demonic people, talking to themselves or talking to the demon. And TV evangelists cast these demons out. And they seem to, I don't know. But I know that if you went to some of the churches and you talk to people, they'll tell you that demons were cast out of them. And maybe not by a televangelist, but just friends praying and laying on their hands and praying for somebody. And fasting, it says the demons come out. Prayer and fasting, Jesus says. That was a sign, casting out the demons. That's pretty obvious to see that, because somebody has a demon and the it's not cast out and they still act demonic, then you can obviously see it. So you don't hear that too much in the churches today in 2014. Because if it cast out, then you could prove it because the person would be completely changed. And I'm sure they do in a lot of churches. I'm not saying that they don't, but it's something that can be shown. Now the next one, they shall speak new, I put languages. The glosses is a tongue. The glossa is a little thing in our throat. It's a figure of speech that you don't speak a tongue. I mean, a tongue is a muscle. It's in our mouth. And it doesn't do anything except wobbles around in our mouth. Our brain tells the muscle which way to fluctuate and then pushes air out through our lungs. And when the air comes out, it goes through a vocal cord, and then it's modulated by the tongue, letting the air go and the sound go in and out by this vocal cord that we have. And so the tongue, speaking in tongues, I know it was used in the King James, but I prefer languages because other places it says they were speaking in tongues, languages, and they mention them, the languages of the Egyptians and the Cyrenians and the Persians and all these different languages in the book of Acts. New languages. Well, new languages could be that they'll go to the New World and speak the language of the Native Americans, and they will learn. I learned Greek, and it wasn't instantaneous. Sometimes it may seem like this is what it's saying it's going to be, but I don't necessarily think that's the only way it can happen, is all of a sudden you're given this gift of tongues and languages, and it just happens all of a sudden. Maybe it does, but maybe sometimes it works in other ways. And then they shall take away serpents. Well, there's some churches down south where they pick up these serpents and part of the church, and every once in a while the pastor will get bit and dies. So playing with serpents to prove that you have the Holy Spirit in you, to me, is not what it's talking about. If you do happen to get a bit or something, then like Paul, he didn't die when the beast in the fire grabbed a hold of his hand. So we can have things happen to us that normally we would die from, but we actually live through it. And I've heard testimonials on that. And if anything deadly they shall drink, in no way shall it hurt them. So if you drink any kind of poison, then God can protect the insides to make it just go straight on through, I suppose, and it won't kill the person or hurt them. Now that's another one. I mean, I don't know of any churches that people sit there and do like they do with the snakes, take some horrible arsenic poison and drink it. And no, they don't do that. They'll do something like, a snake. I mean, you can grab a hold of a snake and mess around with it and hold it and do these things and show, you don't have afraid, but then when you get bit and die, it's a different story. And then they shall place hands upon ill ones, somebody that's sick, and they shall suffice. And says the brothers come and anoint the sick ones with oil and put their hands on an ill one. I had hands laid on me when I left Southern California church and came up to Oregon, but I wasn't sick. That's the laying of hands. It's also used for choosing leaders of the church, the laying on of hands. Timothy had hands laid upon him. So then the Lord, after speaking with them, was taken up into the heaven. It doesn't say a cloud, but we know from other places that that's how it happened. And sat at the right of God. So did they see that when he's going up into the heaven, and all of a sudden it opened up and they saw a form of God of some sort, and Jesus was there. Just like Stephen opened up, and Stephen could see Jesus in heaven. these people probably were looking up and going, wow, there he goes. He's going up into heaven. It says he's going to come down in Matthew 24 the same way as he left. And those having gone forth proclaimed akirixon, the kerygma, the proclaiming or preaching everywhere of the Lord. So they went and started telling everybody. And we're working together, firming the logon, the word, by the signs following after. So signs were following them. Peter, Paul healed people and raised the dead. All kinds of things were going on with this early church. It still goes on today. Maybe not quite as the same, but I believe miracles happen. They're not necessarily something spectacular, but it can be a miracle, like, to me, God allowing me to translate the Old and New Testament. Somebody that flunked out of college because he couldn't get by. I failed German twice. I mean, I hated foreign language. The last thing I wanted to do is anything to do with the foreign language. But yet, God saw fit that he wanted to use me and imputed the power. To me, that's a miracle. I mean, it's not on my strength and my intelligence. Believe me, I can show you my grades in grade school and high school and college. I have them all. I'm ashamed to show them, but I'm proud to show them because it shows that God can use anyone however he wants to use. Miracles are still happening, and the Lord is alive. He's not dead, and these people saw it, and they are telling us that what they saw, and there's nothing like it. There's no other religion on the earth that proclaims anything like what the things that happened with this man, God incarnate, for 3 or 4 years. And it ends up here in the short book of Mark. And we will continue with these seminars and go into our next video seminar. I hope you'll join us. God bless.